Good morning, students. So today I shall continue with the topic which is errors and exceptions in Java. Now consider the set of exception classes as shown in this table. Each of these exception classes, that is arithmetic exception, array index out of bounds exception, array store exception, and the negative array size exception, are bundled in a standard package called as the java.lang.star. So each of these exceptions comes under a standard package known as the java.lang.star. And in addition to that, the base class of each of these exception is the exception class. That is, for each of these exceptions, arithmetic exception, array index out of bounds exception, array store exception, and the negative array size exception, its base class is the exception class. And they are bundled in a standard package known as the java.lang.star. Now you remember in my earlier presentation I have already discussed about the arithmetic exception. So the topic for today's discussion will be the array index out of bounds exception. Let me highlight it. So this is the one. The program in this slide will demonstrate the handling of array index out of bounds exception. The program starts by declaring a class specified by the name driver. Then come inside the body of this class, a main method has been declared, which is identified as public static void main. Now, as we know, that the starting point of execution of a Java program always starts from the main method. That's why the starting point of execution of this Java program will be from the class driver, which contains the main method. Now come inside the body of this main method. At first, an array specified by the name ARR has been created with the data type as string, and 4 elements handle, gear, accelerator, and clutch has been assigned to this array called ARR. Since this array contains 4 elements, that's why we can say that the length of this array is 4, and this is specified as arr.length is equal to 4, where ARR is the name of the array. Now you have to note one thing, that the index of the array always starts from 0. So the index of our array, that is ARR, will also start from 0, and at the index 0 it holds the element handle. This is represented as ARR0 equal to handle. At the index 1 it holds the element gear. This is represented as ARR1 equal to gear. At the index 2 it holds the element accelerator. This is represented as ARR2 equal to accelerator. And at the index 3 it holds the element clutch, which is represented as ARR3 equal to clutch. Now once these elements are assigned into the array, then in the next step the for loop start along with its body. The for loop consists of 3 parts. Okay, so let me highlight this for loop. This for loop consists of 3 parts. The first part is the initialization part, which initializes the value 0 to the variable I. Then the second part is the condition part, which checks whether the value of I is less than or equal to arr.length or not. That means it's checking whether the value of I is less than or equal to 4 or not, as the value of arr.length is equal to 4. Then the last part is the iteration part, which increases the value of I by 1. So I plus is the iteration part, which will increase the value of I by 1 at each step. Now as the for loop starts with the initialization part, the value 0 will be assigned to I as the first step. So here the value 0 has been assigned to I. then come inside the body of this for loop. Inside the body, it executes the statement system.out.println, and then it prints the value of arri. Now as we know that the value of I initially was 0, so arri becomes arr0, and we know that arr at index 0 is handle, so it prints the text handle into the output. Now once this statement has been executed, the control will again move to the beginning of the for loop. Okay, then it executes the iteration part, increases the value of I by 1. As the value of I was 0 before, now after increasing it by 1, the value of I now becomes 1. Then again it enters inside the body of this for loop, executes this system.out.println statement again. This time again it prints the value of arri into the output. Now as the value of I is 1, it prints arr1 into the output. So arr1 has the value gear, and that's why it prints the text gear into the output. And again the control shifts to the beginning of the for loop, okay, then executes the iteration part, increases the value of I by 1. As we know that the value of I was 1 before, now increasing it by 1 sets the value 2 to I. Okay, now again after entering inside the body, it executes the statement system.out.println and then prints the value of arri into the output. Now arri will become arr2, which is storing the value called accelerator. So the value accelerator gets printed into the output. Now again the control shifts to the beginning of the for loop, and again the iteration part shall be executed, which increases the value of I by 1. Now that the value of I was 2 before, increasing it by 1 sets the value 3 to I. Okay, and inside the body, after executing this statement, it prints the value of arri into the output. Now arri becomes arr3, so the value clutch shall be printed into the output. Now as a result, all these values, handle, gear, accelerator and clutch, has been printed into the output. Then again the control shifts to the beginning of the for loop, increases the value of I by 1. Now as the value of I was 3 before, increasing it by 1 sets the new value 4 into I. Now see, you have to check the condition part also from time to time. Now as the value of I is 4, the condition part which says I less than or equal to arr.length is checking whether the value of I is less than or equal to 4 or not, as arr.length has the value 4. So we know that the value of I has been set 4, so this conditional part satisfies. So I less than equal to 4 holds true. Even if the value of I is not less than 4, it is equal to 4, so this conditional statement holds true. And again it enters inside the body of this for loop, executes this statement using system.out.println. Now it prints the value of arri into the output. So the value of arri, now it is arr4. This is because the value of I is now 4. Now at arr4, do we have any element? Just check. We know that arr0 is handle, arr1 is gear, arr2 is accelerator, and arr3 is clutch. But at arr4, we don't have any element inside this array, and that's why, since there is no element at the index 4, this produces an array index out of bound exception, and the program will halt immediately after processing this statement, where it is unable to store and print any element into the output at index 4. Since the last index of this array is 3, holding the element clutch, so at index 4 there are no elements. So this program generates an error or an exception known as the array index out of bounds exception when it tries to print the value which is stored at the index 4. And with this I end my presentation here. That's all for today.